Hey friends, and welcome back to Midweek Motivation. I'm Brittany Frost, and I am a coach, a community builder, and your self-care BFF. My heart is to equip and empower hardworking, purpose-driven women to take care of themselves so that you can go out into the world and love and serve from that overflow. I'm the founder of the Self-Care Sisterhood community, and I believe that we were not meant to do life or our journeys alone. So welcome. Let's get into today's topic. First of all, I can't believe that we're heading into Q2 of 2023. Like, we're in the second quarter of the year. 3 months have gone by in a freaking flash. And for me, it's been a head down kind of start to the year. And I'm kind of excited now to come up for some air and take inventory of where I'm at and truly where I'd like to go. Most people, you guys, set goals at the top of a year. This has probably been you because it's most definitely been me in my journey, where you set goals at the top of the year and you never consider those goals again until it comes time to wrap up the year. Or maybe later down the road, you're like, oh yeah, I was working towards that one goal. And the thing is, by that time, the goals seem so far away, both from the time that you actually committed to them and quite possibly how far you still need to go to kind of make strides and bridge that gap. It's this vicious cycle, and one that I realized in my life wasn't serving me. So nowadays I have a much better way, and it's what I call a quarterly check-in. And so today we're going to chat through three things. We're going to talk about what a quarterly check-in meeting is and why I do it. I'm also going to give you guys questions to help you reflect on this last quarter of the year, and questions to help you prep and plan for a new one ahead of you. And then bonus at the end is I want to help you get back on track. So I'm going to talk through this idea of a GPS and a roadmap to help you get back on track if maybe you've gotten a little off track, which is normal. And then also I want to help you make progress towards what matters most in this next quarter. You ready? Let's dive in. So first, I want to talk about what a quarterly check-in actually is. For me, it's a chance to check in on those goals and the methods that I'm using to work towards them to really see if it aligns with my overall vision. As our seasons change, sometimes expectedly, right? We've got planned changes in our lives, but sometimes unexpectedly things happen. And sometimes our goals have to shift with that too. And I want to make sure that you understand at the tip top of this that that is okay. Goals are not chains that keep you feeling like you're falling short all the time. For far too long in my life, I always felt like if I missed the goal, I was a failure. I equated my worth and my value with what I could achieve. And friends, that's just not healthy. And so now I look at goals for me as tools that help me move forward and make progress towards what matters most to me. And again, what matters most to me today in this season might shift over time, and that's okay. So when do I do these check-ins? These check-ins come at the start of a fresh quarter. So you can either do them at the very beginning of the quarter, like right when it happens, or towards the end of a quarter as it's wrapping up. So around January, April, July, and October. This is a great episode that you can come back to later this year as we go into fresh quarters to kind of remind yourself how you do these quarterly check-ins. And why do I do this? What's the whole purpose? It's just a moment, you guys, for me to slow down and get intentional, to look at what's working, what's not working, assess whether my goals are still in alignment with my overall vision, and then just to tweak any methods or actions or maybe behaviors that aren't leading me closer to where I desire to go. Okay, so let's dive in. First thing I love to do when a fresh quarter is here is I just take a moment on reflecting where I'm currently at. So for me, this looks like taking time in my journal in the morning, get a cup of coffee, sit in quiet, and just take some time. Now, if you don't have the luxury of this, you can just simply ask yourself these questions and start to really consider the answers. Maybe when you have some space, like on a commute home in silence, or if you happen to have, a lunch break that you can take and you can just kind of escape a little bit. So here are a few questions you can use as prompts to help you get going. First of all, I love asking myself, what were my original goals for the year? And PS, if at this point you're like, I didn't set any goals for the year, no worries. I've also been there. There's been times where I just haven't had the capacity when the new year is upon me to sit down and say, this is what I want the year to look like, or it can feel super overwhelming. And so I end up just retreating back and I do nothing, right? That paralysis. And so if you haven't set goals, this is not a time to shame yourself. This is a time to say, okay, what would I like my goals to be for this year? Question 2 I ask is, what am I proud of? What am I celebrating from this last quarter? And something that helps me, actually, it's super silly, maybe not, but I love to go back. I document a lot of things on my Instagram. Shameless plug if you're not following me, at Inspire Beauty Brit. But I document a lot of my day-to-day and my life on stories over there. I love that. And one of the reasons I love it is because at this time of year, I can actually go back in my story archive and I can see what I did for the last 3 months. Because sometimes when I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, what am I actually proud of? The initial response for most people would be nothing. Again, I love to think of these moments together, like we're sitting together, just enjoying coffee, catching up, seeing how we're doing. And if I were to ask you, what are you proud of from this last quarter? What are you celebrating? It might be really hard to get your memory jogged as to what you're actually proud of and what you're celebrating. So that's normal, because we gravitate towards, it's easier to gravitate towards the negative or the things that didn't work. We can tend to camp out there and focus on that. So asking ourselves, what are we proud of and celebrating, can be tricky. That's why I love going back to my Instagram stories and seeing what did we do? And so I love to kind of just like go through a recap. And again, this is your moment. If that's not something you've been accustomed to doing, why not try in this next quarter by documenting life a little bit more, simply as like a little diary back to yourself later on of all the things you did, right? Okay, so that's one thing I love to do. And don't be shy here. I used to be super shy about what I was celebrating. And then I realized that I needed that hype from myself. I needed to give myself that gift of celebration, of acknowledgement of what was going well, because I am my own worst enemy. And I feel like if you're listening to this right now and watching in, maybe you are too. So give yourself this gift, this moment in this space to actually acknowledge where you are getting it right. The third one is, what didn't work well? And why is that? Now, I go into this with like this non-critical, non-judgmental, just like non-opinionated party, because I just want to know what didn't work well. I don't want to marinate on it, but I want to get to the bottom of it so that I don't just keep repeating things over and over that aren't working for me. So maybe I went into the quarter with this idea that this would be my chance where I finally got this fitness routine that I committed to and was consistent with. Maybe that was one of your goals. And then you fell off. But maybe it wasn't the goal that was the problem. Maybe the problem was the method. So what didn't work about that? Maybe the workouts you were trying to do were too long, or maybe the time of day you were trying to squeeze it in just didn't work and you couldn't make it stick. Maybe you didn't have the right accountability in place, or it wasn't something you enjoyed. I don't know what that looks like, but instead of saying that the goal didn't work, maybe look at the methods when you're asking yourself this question of what didn't work well. Ask yourself what methods didn't work well. That way you can tweak and adjust. Question number 4, what has been getting my attention this quarter? Whew, this one is like a nice look in the mirror, right? Far too often for me, what gets my attention is scrolling, comparing, finding myself stuck in loops of a mindset that aren't serving me. And if I were to ask myself, is that in alignment with my goals? The answer more often than not is no, it's not. So I want to ask you, what's been getting your attention this quarter? And has it been in alignment with where you desire to go? And the last question for reflection is, what have I been consistent with that is benefiting me and my goals? And what have I been consistent with that is not benefiting me and my goals? Ooh, friends, let me talk about consistency real quick. Little side note here. I used to think that I couldn't be consistent at the things I wanted to do to achieve the goals I wanted to achieve. But I realized that it's not consistency, because my friends, in certain seasons of my life, got really consistent at coming home from work and pouring a glass of wine. In some seasons of my life, I got really consistent with sitting on the couch and watching Netflix all night. In some seasons of my life, I got really consistent with being like a hermit and staying indoors and not getting out and socializing. It's not that I'm not consistent. It's that sometimes I'm not consistent with the right things, the things that are benefiting you and your goals. So this is a really great question because there are things you're being consistent with right now that are serving you. And there are also things that you're consistent with that are simply not serving you. So take a look in the mirror, ask those questions, and reflect. Okay, so you took some time, you asked yourself some of the tough questions looking back on the last quarter, and I already can sense where this is going. Sometimes we do this, and this is like where we do a hard stop. We're like, nope, no more, because we feel far behind. We feel like we're not there yet. Maybe you are criticizing yourself because you fell short of some of the things you said you were going to do. Or maybe you just have a whole lot of stuff going on and it just feels really overwhelming. And I get that. But you just took time to reflect, and you might realize at this moment that you haven't actually been very focused or intentional with your goals. And again, I've been there, done that. And so I have to include this part today in our chat because I'm a realist. I would be doing you a flat disservice today if I simply assumed that every chunk of the next 90 days would flow perfectly. That's not realistic. So before we even go forward to look at the next 3 months, we're not going to beat ourselves up over the last 3 months, but we're also not going to put on these like fake goggles where we think everything's going to be butterflies and rainbows and just magical. There's this thing called life. And as much as we can plan and prep, put goals on paper, things happen, and the outcome is often not in our control. And I found that the instinct for so many is to just give up. It's again why so many people set goals at the top of the year and truly never revisit them, that this idea of a quarterly check-in can be very foreign. But instead of that instinct to just pull back, give up, disassociate, detach, let's reassess. Let's evaluate. Let's get honest about where we're at, which is what we just did, but let's also extend grace to ourselves and remember, like I said before, that the goal isn't always the problem. A lot of times it's the method, and a lot of times the problem is that we've just gotten off track. I love this analogy. I don't know if you've ever read the book Girl Stop Apologizing. It's by Rachel Hollis, but she gives this idea of a goal setting roadmap in her book. And she has this like graphic where at the beginning is like the starting line, and then she has this road kind of curving, and I almost imagine it like through a forest, you know, like on either side is like wooded areas. And then along the way are these mile markers, mile marker 1, mile marker 2, mile marker 3, and then the finish line. And if we think of it like our life and our journey through each year, the starting line is like New Year's Eve. Mile marker 1 is where we're at right now, a quarter of the way through the year. Mile marker 2 is going to be our halfway point. Mile marker 3 is when we're, in the fall season, rounding out towards the end. And then the finish line would be New Year's Eve for our next year. On the sides of this graphic, she has woods. And a lot of times in our journey, you start the year with the best intentions, but by the time you're supposed to be at mile marker 1, you've actually like ended up in the woods, like off track, off course. And here's the deal. If I were driving, I live here in Dallas, and my family, I grew up in Michigan. A lot of my family lives in Michigan. And if I were driving from Dallas to Michigan, I would turn on my GPS. I would plug in that end destination. I would know mile markers along the way. I would kind of have a general idea of where halfway would be, maybe a few other stops to ensure that I was on track. This is what our quarterly check-ins are, you guys. This is a moment for us to get back on track and kind of course correct. And along the way, if I were en route to Michigan from Dallas, if I got off track, my friendly reminder and guide, Siri, would absolutely let me know that I needed to make a U-turn, that I needed to reroute so that I could get back to where I wanted to go. And our goals are the same way. We need to know where we're headed. So remember that first question where I asked, what were your original goals for the year? If you don't have any goals, if you don't have a target, you have no way to break that down into bite-sized, manageable chunks. So number 1, my friend, do yourself a beautiful favor today. Give yourself the gift of some clarity. where do you want to move this year? Where do you want to end up when the ball drops? So we know where we're headed, breaking that down now into those manageable bite-sized chunks, and then we can recalculate, AKA this quarterly meeting, when you get a little off track, because it happens. We end up in the woods often, okay? So 2 things that might not be serving you. Let's go back to this roadmap analogy and that graphic that I kind of explained to you. So first, if I were off track, I wouldn't just throw in the towel and turn around and go back to Dallas when my goal was to get to my family in Michigan. If I were off track, I wouldn't throw in the towel and turn around. So let me remind you that you set a goal for a reason. It doesn't matter what state of mind you were in when you set the goal, but there's something on your heart that wants you to move towards that thing, that it's a clue that it's for you, that it's meant for you. And it's going to require that you get uncomfortable. So I want you to honor that and just get back on track. When you started to get uncomfortable with your goal, think about it. Whatever that goal was for you, it was probably about the time that the goal got inconvenient or a little uncomfy that you decided to just stop. So honor that it's uncomfortable. Honor that change can feel a little uncomfy, and then just get back on track. Find one thing you can do today that will immediately get you moving in the right direction. So for example, let's go back to that workout routine idea. And let's say you fell off, but starting today, you don't need to get like another gym membership and buy like a new outfit and all the things. Like today, you could simply just like fill up a bottle of water and make sure you hit your water goals. Today, you could, on your lunch break, go outside and get some fresh air and a little walk. Today, when you get home, you can walk your dogs. So like just do one small thing in the direction. Tonight, you could set your workout clothes out for tomorrow morning. Okay, one small thing that's in the direction of your desires. Okay, and the second thing. So number 1, it doesn't serve us to throw in the towel. Like just let's turn around, let's get back on track, let's just do one small thing. But number 2, if I were off track, you guys, I wouldn't just dive deeper into the woods. I wouldn't, if I'm driving towards Michigan and I got off course, I wouldn't just like, you know what, whatever, spiral, YOLO. Just like going out of your comfort zone, or like just like getting back rather into that comfort zone isn't serving you. Like you have to get a little uncomfy. Change requires change. Just like that's not serving you, neither is that downward spiral. And again, the only way out of a downward spiral is to simply make a different decision. All right, so this is when it gets really good, you guys, because we can't stop at the reflection. A lot of times we know what our goals were, we reflect a little bit, we end up, if you're like me, beating yourself up, and then you stop there. But this is where it gets good. Promise me you'll continue. So after you reflect, it's time to make a game plan for how we want the next 90 days to go down. The next step is to prep for the next 90 days. And this is where you get to take your power back, my friend. So take a moment and ask yourself the following questions. Again, you can journal these, you can just consider them, but these are some questions that help me prep for a fresh quarter. So number 1, I ask, what would progress look and feel like in 90 days? Doesn't mean that I'm at the finish line. It just means I'm moving forward towards it. So what does progress look and feel like? Number 2, what are you committing to in this quarter? What's a solid Q2 goal? Maybe not the end goal, but could you break it down into something smaller? What new habits and routines do you need to implement to better support that vision? So again, if it's a fitness related goal, consider the actions, consider the habits, consider the routines that you need to start making habitual so that you can support that vision. Next question, what plans and responsibilities are coming up this quarter? Think about and consider, are there any obstacles that might get in your way? And then the last question, what's stopping you? What is stopping you from achieving that goal? What would it actually take? So friends, no matter where you're at in your journey, I know that taking time each quarter to pause and reflect on your goals, to navigate where you're off track so that you can make those tweaks and adjustments and really dig into what needs focus and attention in the coming months, I promise you, it's going to be a game changer for your progress. So I hope today's midweek motivation helped you get excited for a fresh quarter. And seriously, I can't wait to cheer you on as you make progress towards what matters most in this quarter. Tag me, like this, comment, share it, do what you need to do. And if you need more help, I've got you. Number one, you can snag my free trackers that help you make habits stick, because I get it. Working towards goals, it can be tough. But one of my favorite places to start is by tracking, because habits stick when we repeat them, and tracking my habits daily, it makes a difference because I am tracking those habits or those actions that I want to create and cultivate into habit. So you can grab that free bundle. Just simply click the link where you're watching this, or you can go to inspirebeautybrit.com/tracker, and I will make sure that that free bundle of trackers gets into your hand. But the other way that you can get more support in your journey, now right now my sisterhood membership is not open, but this summer it will be open. So very soon it's going to be opening for enrollment, and you can be first in the loop by simply going to inspirebeautybrit.com/join the sisterhood. And there you can get on my wait list. That way you are first in the know, first in the loop for when the sisterhood membership launches for summer 2023. All right, my friends, midweek motivation is a wrap for today. I love you all. I believe in you all. I'm rooting for you all. And hey, let's go out. Let's take some action and go be great.